Side pipe, it says steel braided. This is my conditioning for my shins. Be good, motherfucker. Up. Up. No blood.
In mixed martial arts, they say the basic traditional fighting styles are the most effective, mixing a wrestling base with striking and BJJ. Well, today we are taking a look at some fighters who strayed away from the traditional and developed a more unique, unorthodox way of fighting, to the point where you could tell who the fighter is just by looking at a silhouette of the fight. Make sure you subscribe to the channel to never miss an Athlete Central video. Now let's dive straight into the top 5 unorthodox fighters in the UFC.
Number 5. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson.
The first fighter on our list is Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Born and raised in South Carolina, Wonderboy practiced karate from a very young age and currently has a black belt in the martial arts. Before turning to MMA, he was a professional kickboxer with an outstanding record of 20-0 and 37-0 as an amateur. He started MMA in 2010, getting signed to the UFC 2 years later, having great success in the organization and challenging for the undisputed title twice against Tyron Woodley. Wonderboy managed to reach those heights thanks to his exceptional kickboxing coming from his karate base. The American always fights with his hands down, but doesn't get hit often thanks to his excellent distance management. The jab is also more effective in Thompson's style because the opponent doesn't see it coming up from his hips, with Stephen always varying the angle of his punches. Pound for pound, he is probably up there with Israel Adesanya for the best striker in the UFC. Wonderboy's kicking game is also second to none. He is almost in a sideways stance, allowing his side kicks to be as snappy as his jab. We've seen a great kicking arsenal from him, with question mark kicks and switch kicks utilized in almost every Wonderboy fight. The highlight is definitely his amazing KO win over Jake Ellenberger.
Another spinning attack! It connected! That's it! Stephen Wonderboy Thompson knocks Jake Ellenberger out cold! The hype is real, ladies and gentlemen! Stephen Wonderboy
Thompson actually has a YouTube channel where he shows kicking techniques and his exercises for stronger legs. Wonderboy is a very unique fighter, and the unorthodox nature of his striking makes him a nightmare to deal with for strikers. Lyoto Machida was a successful fighter with a similar style, but he is past his prime. Thompson's opponents have to revert to using karate specialists in training camp to emulate his style because of the lack of MMA fighters that can replicate it. Fun fact, Stephen's father Ray, his head coach, was actually a kickboxing legend. Known as the Master of Disaster, he participated in tournaments around the world as a member of the US kickboxing team. Ray has 9 black belts in different martial arts and is an excellent mentor to Wonderboy. Thompson said he would never fight without his dad in his corner.
Number 4. Ryan Hall.
Number 4 on our list is Ryan the Wizard Hall. The Virginia-born 36-year-old has a completely different background to Thompson, with whom he has actually trained to improve his striking. The Wizard specializes in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Prior to becoming a mixed martial artist, Hall competed professionally in BJJ tournaments, becoming an IBJJF World, Nogi World, and European champion as a purple belt. His real crowning jewel is being a medalist at the world-renowned Abu Dhabi Submission Fighting World Championship. He restarted his MMA career in 2012, 6 years following his one and only pro bout, and in 2015 made his way into the UFC via the Ultimate Fighter reality show.
But I wouldn't have had the opportunity to do this, and I wouldn't be prepared if it weren't for Faraz Zahabi from TriStar, Ray Thompson from Upstate Karate, so many of my training partners, so many friends, Ayman Zahabi, killer, unbelievable. So I owe it to everybody else. Thank you.
There are many BJJ experts in the UFC, but none quite like him. High-level black belts like Rodolfo Vieira and Gilbert Burns have incorporated wrestling in order to effectively implement their BJJ game, but Hall hasn't at all. The Wizard exclusively uses rolls or ankle picks in order to get his opponents to the mat. His go-to is the Imanari roll. In his recent fight against Ilia Topuria at UFC 264, after a few exchanges on his feet, Hall started the barrage of Imanari roll attempts, which all failed against the Georgian prospect and eventually led to his first round KO loss after Topuria defended the roll perfectly, passed guard, and unleashed vicious ground and pound for the finish. Hall's technique had worked for him in his first 4 UFC fights, but now might be the time to revert back to basics and get some wrestling in his arsenal. There is no one quite like Ryan Hall in MMA, and his opponents have to find BJJ-oriented training partners before that fight. However, his last fight exposed the blueprint to beat him, so that unorthodox style can only get you so far at the highest echelon of mixed martial arts. Don't be thinking you can beat him though, or you might end up in a real bad position like this guy.
His answer. You might need to touch back off. Right. When I get him.
I mean, what was he thinking approaching a professional fighter like that? Some people are way too delusional. Am I right, Charlie Z?
He's done. He give up.
Number 3, Tony Ferguson.
The craziest guy on the list by far, Tony El Cucuy Ferguson, enters at number 3. Tony is of Mexican heritage, born in California and raised in Michigan, where he wrestled in high school and through college. Contrary to the last 2 entries, Tony did not have a professional career in a different sport. El Cucuy trained at an MMA gym after college and started his amateur career. In 2010, Ferguson made it onto The Ultimate Fighter and won the show, earning himself a UFC contract. After his loss to Michael Johnson in the second UFC fight, Tony went on to an incredible 12-fight win streak, but due to circumstances, never got to fight for the undisputed UFC lightweight title. Ferguson has a very good ground game, but is also incredibly dangerous on his feet. He has battered so many of his opponents with vicious elbows to the point where they were unrecognizable post-fight. His stand-up is varied. Tony can switch stances with ease, has incredible cardio, and loves elbows and knees. On the ground, Tony is extremely unorthodox. El Cucuy gets out of situations using all kinds of rolls, flips, and even has an upkick KO to his name. The Darce choke is Tony's go-to. You rarely see it in the UFC, yet he has 3 of them on his UFC resume. He works with 10th Planet coach Eddie Bravo, even though some of his choices are questionable.
Yeah, there you go. Give me sand. Throw it up. Come on.
Give me sand. He's doing some.
I mean, who the hell does that? Their BJJ is top tier though, and very difficult to deal with.
It's just a kick, man. Everybody's scared. They're moving divisions and they're running away, so it feels amazing to be here.
I'm pretty sure nobody can replicate Tony's fighting style in sparring. That's how unique El Cucuy is. His training methods are even more unorthodox. Tony has posted videos of him kicking metal poles to condition his shins, simultaneously bench pressing while doing flutter kicks, training Wing Chun, and breakdancing as part of his training camp. His unique technique makes him a fan favorite, and in his prime, a nightmare matchup for any 155-pounder on the planet.
You know how many times I had my leg kicked this count?
1,000.
I don't know.
Number 2, Dominick Cruz.
Former bantamweight champion Dominick Cruz is next on our list, and he is definitely a tough nut to crack. The UFC color commentator was born in San Diego and raised in Tucson, where he started wrestling in 7th grade, starting his journey in mixed martial arts. He was so good that he received a scholarship to wrestle at the University of Northern Colorado, but had to pass up the opportunity due to an injury. In 2005, Cruz decided to become a professional fighter, and after WEC, where the Dominator was bantamweight champion, got merged with the UFC, he became the first ever UFC bantamweight champion, as the division was new in the organization. Dom has had very bad luck when it comes to injuries, sustaining multiple ACL tears throughout his career. It is amazing that he is still able to utilize his unique footwork so effectively, even after all those injuries. Yes, footwork is the reason why Cruz is number 2 on our list. Nobody has replicated this type of footwork in the octagon, and that's why it's so hard to deal with it. On the Joe Rogan Experience, Cruz talked about why he developed his footwork, saying that in the early days there wasn't a weight class light enough for him, so he had to develop footwork to be evasive from the bigger guys in the weight class and not get hit.
Now my style, I built it so that no matter which style you tried to throw at me, it was going to give it a problem. And that was the basis that I wanted to create when I fought. Every single time I fought somebody, it doesn't matter what your gift is, the planes that I'm going to fight you on make it impossible for your gifts to be your gifts anymore.
It has taken Cruz years to perfect his style. With all his fancy footwork and complicated upper body movement, nobody in the world can replicate the style in training camp. Who would you like to see Cruz fight next? Personally, I like to see him versus Freddie Edgar. Ex-champ versus ex-champ. Leave your answer in the comments below.
Number 1, Michel Pereira.
The top spot on our list has to go to Michel Demolidor Pereira. Never have I seen such an unorthodox fighter. If there was Ever a perfect fighter for saying you cannot miss this fight? It is him. Born in Tacoma, Brazil, Pereira started training karate at the age of 12 and eventually took up BJJ when he started getting serious about becoming an MMA fighter. Making his professional debut in 2011, Pereira had to wait 8 years for his UFC debut, which came in 2019, where the world first learned about the chaos that Demolidor brings to the octagon. Showtime kicks, Superman punches, flips, all in the space of a mere 1 minute 47 seconds that it took him to knock Danny Roberts out. Pereira always brings a high pace to his fights. He used to exert his energy on the fancy strikes all the time, but after gassing out against a much smaller Tristan Connolly, Michel has turned the craziness down a bit. He is still way more unorthodox in his style than any UFC fighter on the roster, and his footwork, while not as effective as Cruz's, is still incredibly unique. He definitely trained soccer at a young age with that type of footwork. In his last and most profile fight to date against Nico Price, Pereira managed to get Nico to the mat and actually backflipped his way into a full mount. Experienced grapplers use years of skill and technique to get into that position, and Pereira uses a single flip? I mean, how do you prepare for that? If you didn't know about Michel Pereira, definitely check out his next fight, as he is without a doubt the most unorthodox fighter in the UFC. Thank you very much, guys, for watching today's video. Did we leave anyone out? Let us know in the comments below. Leave a like, make sure to subscribe, and never miss an Athlete Central video. Until next time.